this lecture is going to go over determining molar mass, things that you're going to want to have. You're going to want to have a periodic table. You want to have a calculator. You want to have your objective sheet so you know what it is you should be able to do by the end of this. Now, this is going to seem like a very simple skill. It is going to pull some stuff from previous units you're going to need to remember, but it's also very crucial that you're able to do this for the remainder of this unit and as well as things in the future. So don't just breeze over it because it seems simple. Make sure that you are 100% sure of what you are doing. All right, so molar mass. What is molar mass? So molar mass is how many grams of a substance are in 1 mole. So our units on this of molar mass, because we love units, right, are grams per mole. Now you'll notice that I wrote mole without an E. You're going to see this a lot written like this. We'll talk about this more in the next lecture, but MOL means mole. Okay? So how many grams of any substance, whether it's an element, whether it's a compound, are there in 1 mole of this substance? And you're probably thinking, should I know what a mole is? No, you haven't been exposed to this yet. But a mole simply is a quantity. So we'll think a dozen. A dozen is a quantity. It's a quantity of 12. We'll talk about what the quantity of a mole is later, but just know right now it's just a quantity of something, how much of something there is. And in our case, we're going to be talking about how much of a compound there is. All right, so how do we find this? How do we find this molar mass? Well, the reason you need your periodic table is because we're going to use that average atomic mass from the periodic table. Remember that average is the average mass of all isotopes of that specific element. That is the number that we are going to be using. All right, so finding the molar mass of an element. So all you simply do is find that average atomic mass that's on your periodic table. So if we're looking for the molar mass of calcium, find calcium. Find calcium on your periodic table. What's it say? 40.078 grams per mole. Now, just as a little bit of a disclaimer, maybe you have 40.01. It just depends what periodic table you are looking at. But this is one reason that you have to show your work. If you just give me a number and I don't know where you got your information from or I don't know what numbers you used, I can't give you credit for anything. So make sure that you are writing things down. All right, so carbon. Find carbon on your periodic table. 12.01 grams per mole. Remember, units. Got to include those. All right, oxygen. We all know where oxygen is on that periodic table. You might see 15.99. You might see 16. Either one is fine. And hydrogen, 1.01. Comes straight from the periodic table. There is no trick. There is nothing extra to do. That is how you find it for an element. Now remember, sometimes with our oxygen, it's going to be an O2. Our hydrogen would be H2, so they're diatomic. Remember the Hofbrickels. So in that case, it would be 32 grams per mole because we have two oxygens, so you take that 16 and you multiply it by 2 to give you 32. So what would hydrogen look like? We're just going to take this 1.01, we're going to multiply it by 2 to give us 2.02. So make sure that if you have O2 or you have H2 or you have N2 or F2, any of those, make sure that you're multiplying it twice. So you're going to see a little bit more of that in just a second here. So when we find molar mass of a compound, you're going to add up the molar mass of all components of the compound. So by components, here I mean just the elements. So basically what you just did. Now we're just adding everything together, okay? But you have to pay special attention to subscripts. So this goes back to the Hofbrickels there, that we don't just have one oxygen, we have two. We don't just have one hydrogen, we have two. So we need to multiply it by 2. All right, so SO4. First thing we got to do, determine that molar mass of the S. It is 32.07 grams per mole. And how many do I have? I only have 1, so multiply it by 1, it's going to give me the same thing. Oxygen, 16 grams per mole. How many oxygens do I have? 4. I know I kind of erased that. There's 4 there. Times 4 equals 64 grams per mole. Now what do? I add 32.07 plus 64 is going to give me 96.07 grams per mole. That is my molar mass of SO4. Alright, so a few more for us to do here. NH4, 3PO4, so ammonium phosphate, and then we also have water. Let's do the water one first, okay? So we have H2O, we have H is 1.01, and we have how many of them? 2, which gives me 2.02. Then we have O, which is 16. How many of those do I have? I have 1. Equals 16.00. What do? Add them together. We get 18.02 grams per mole. You're going to see water a lot, okay? So that one you should become pretty familiar with. All right? So I'm going to erase this. We'll need some room for this next one here. All right, let's take a look here. So, first thing that we have is N. My molar mass of N, 14.01. How many N's do I have? Looks like I just have 1, but remember this subscript is going to distribute in, so I have 3 of them. I'm going to do all the math at the end here. Then I have H. I have 4 H's times 3 is 12. Remember, you're not adding there, you multiply. P, I only have 1. Looking at your periodic table for P, you see that it is and then O, 16. I've got 4 of them. Now remember, if you have 14.00 for nitrogen, or you had 30.9, I believe it's 85 for phosphorus, it's okay. As long as everything is in that area, you're not going to find something that's going to give you a drastically different number. It just depends what periodic table you're looking at and how everything's rounded. All right. So 14.01 times 3 equals 42.03. 1.01 times 12 is 12.12. 30.97 is 30.97. And this is 64. Now add that up. I'm going to give you a minute. Double check my math here. $149.12 grams per mole. That is your molar mass of ammonium phosphate. All right, I'm going to give you two more. I want you to try this. You're going to try carbonic acid and potassium permanganate. Take your time, write everything out, pause it, come back, we'll check your answers. All right, for carbonic acid, you should have got 62.03 grams per mole. And for potassium permanganate, 158.04 grams per mole. And that is it. That is everything for your first quiz there. So please take your time on this. It's very easy to just rush through it and make mistakes. And you are going to have to be able to do this for future stuff in the future with this unit and the next ones. So let me know if you have any questions, any problems, and good luck.